Okay, if we put an STL check on this, it's going to come back with no errors, and that's what we want. We need to do a few things before we start texturing now. The first one is we need to go in here and add some smoothing groups to this so that when we render it, we're not getting this type of thing happening. Remember, we moved a lot of pieces around, and we're going to get some little sharp edges because we kind of beat this up and dinged it up. So what I'm going to do is come back in here and select each side. So everything that's part of that side, that one too. Make sure we got everything, yeah. And we can count these as part of, actually we'll leave those separate. We'll make those a separate smoothing group. Look a little better. Okay, and under Polygon we'll go down here to our smoothing groups. You can see it's already got something applied to it. I'm going to take that off and just apply one to this. Now when we render it, we're getting a much smoother angle there. That's what we want. Now here's a little trick. You can actually hide the polygons by going to Hide Selected. And then the little worn pieces, the cracks, because those are the small details that we want to cover in this project. And I got these off of eBay. It just happens, I guess, if you're selling old crates that you take pictures of all sides of them. Maybe somebody out there collects these things. But all these pictures I have all sides to them, and that's going to make the texturing really easy for us too, because we can just strip the textures, the image off of these pictures, and then use that as a template for our textures, and it should fit right on our box. So there's a few here you can choose from. I'm using this particular one down here at the bottom. I've gone into Photoshop and I've combined a top, a side, and a front picture together so that I can just have this open in Max. And when I double click on it, you can see that I can close the asset browser, and this image will now stay open, and I can size this down so that it can just sit right over here on the side, and I can minimize it when I don't want to see it and bring it up when I do, and that'll help us model it. Okay? So I'm going to model this particular box. Now the video will cut in and out as I stop it, transfer that particular portion over to my hard drive, and then start it again. So if the video seems to be slightly choppy, that's what I'm doing. These longer videos, I have to do that so they don't get lost and too big for my computer to handle. Okay, so we know how to box model things. I'm going to slide this guy over here for a second, go over to my box object. I'm going to drag that out my top viewport. Not really interested in scale or size on this because I can scale and size that up later. I am interested in kind of the general height width proportions here. And I'm going to squish this down. It looks like it's probably about twice as long as it is high. So that's what I've got here. I think over here will work fine, judging by these dimensions, and that looks about right. I'm going to color this something a little more wood-like. And now I'm going to just model in this bottom, or the inside piece. We've done this numerous times. We convert this to Edit Polygon. I'm going to select the top, and all I'm going to do is bevel this down. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit, trying to kind of get the general width correct to the proportions. Hit apply, and I'm just going to bring this down to the bottom. There we go, right around there. Hit enter, and I think I'm going to move the outline amount out so that it's straight. We can just type in 0 there. Okay, so now we have an inside piece. Now, eventually I'm going to rip the bottom off of this and redo the bottom because I want these planks down at the bottom. So I think at this point all I'm going to do is just get the, I can do it from here. I need to get the general shape right here. Let's see. Okay, so it's pinched in on both ends, I think, a little bit. Probably something like that. And over here, it's pinched in a little bit more, something like that, I think. Let me double check. That looks to be about right. That'll work. Okay, so I have the general box shape now in place. Now, we need to do a lot more work to it than just that. We're going to redo the bottom next. And what I'm going to do with the bottom is I'm just going to select the entire bottom piece. So I've got just the bottom piece selected. You can see also that piece. Let me turn off the grid while we're here so we can see what we're doing. So I've got both bottom pieces selected. And I think what I'm going to do, what will end up being easiest for this, is I'm going to, let me look at this. Yeah, I think I'm just going to delete these and drag in some boxes as boards. And there was, what, 3? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So all we need to do is just drag these across. They don't have to be perfect in size or anything right now. We can manipulate that later. So that's pretty good. And I'm going to clone this across, leaving a little gap there. There we go. And you can see I didn't make them wide enough. So all I'm going to do now is just grab each of these and scale them. And we just want them to fit down in there, so that's not bad. A little bit wider so they go to the outside edge of the box. So you can see they stretch across to the outside edges of the box. Eventually we're going to have to get in there and seam all this together. Okay, and I'm going to select the box real quick and just clean it up a little bit. I need to grab these vertices down here, and I just need to move them up because I want everything nice and flat against those boards. That's mainly so that I can see what I'm doing when I have to seam these together. Now there's lots of ways to do this. We could have used connect. We could have beveled these pieces in. So again, there's lots of ways to model things. That's kind of the way these things go. Alright, I've got my box selected. I'm going to attach these boards so that now they're all one piece of the object. And I'm just going to grab these little vertices right here and move them in. And same over here. And I'm just kind of moving things around a little bit just so they're lined up. You can see I'm a little bit off down here. Oops. There we go. And we'll just kind of move those down. Okay, so now I've got this box. It needs to be seamed up. So I've got some work to do to get this guy nice and seamed up. Next thing I'm going to do is delete the sides of the boxes. Actually, I don't need to delete the sides. The bottom, it's the tops I'm going to delete. So I'm going to delete the tops of the boxes because those are going to need to be rebuilt so that this is one solid piece. Right? We're going to rebuild these and seam them into the sides. And I need to grab the sides here. I'm going to put this on edged faces. I need to grab the sides here. There we go. And holding down Control so that I get both those. What I need to do now is add some segments so that I can kind of glue these guys into place into this piece. And I'm going to do that with connect. Oh, I have the wrong sides. That's what was throwing me. There we go. These sides right here. Right there is the problem I'm trying to solve with my smoothing groups. Okay, so it's not that one. That can go back on. It's this guy here. Oh, I can see what the problem is going to be. My problem is right in here. See how that's bending in right there? It's just bad modeling. That is my problem. See how that's going to bend in right there? That's what's causing my smoothing group issue. I have to kind of bend that back out. Just got tweaked somewhere along the way. There we go. Should solve my smoothing group, yeah. And this guy over here has probably got the same problem. Yeah, he does. It's this vertex right there. We'll move him out. That should solve that problem. Okay. There we go. So that solves those. And we'll give this guy the once over here. Let's just make sure everything looks pretty decent. We're looking for any sort of kind of black, smudgy areas. That usually tells us there's a problem with the smoothing group. It's kind of like that. We don't really want that. And that's the same problem we had on the other side. I think it's right here. This guy is our problem, I'll betcha. Yeah, see how that one comes out a little bit too far? Just kind of push him back in. Make it match up with the others. And this probably happened when we were just moving things around to make the crate look kind of beat up. Happened. See, there's a little problem right there. It's right in this area still. And it's right there is a little bit too high. See how if I move this down to match our plane here, we want this to be pretty flat right through here. And that took care of our problem. You can see there, just looking through, there's some problems over here on the other side. See those guys right there. So we're going to need to maneuver around in there. Remember when you're rotating, if you select something and hit this rotate with the yellow inside, it will behave much better. This guy's just going to have to pinch in there. And have some problems over here too. Alright, let's see if that fixed it. Almost. What I'm doing now is sometimes these angles can get a little bit too harsh for the smoothing groups to deal with. And so I'm just moving a few things over. Give it a little bit better angle. You can still see it's still messed up right in there. And right now I'm having trouble figuring out the problem. That's okay. That's okay. Let's try this. Just going to move this up a little bit. So it's right in there is our problem. I'm going to make sure this isn't just a smoothing group number issue. Okay, and this is smoothing group 5. I'm going to put smoothing group 30 on there just to see if that's the problem. No, it's not the problem, so 5 can go back on. Okay. And we'll make sure we're not bleeding over into any of these other smoothing groups. So what I'm doing now is grabbing these smoothing groups along here just to make sure that they weren't accidentally double named. I don't see a problem there. No, looks alright. Okay. Well, I don't see any problem in there right now. So, I think we're going to leave that guy for a second. And the other side's fine. So we're just going to leave that guy for a second. We'll come back to him when we get the textures. I don't want to waste any more time on it. Okay, so now we have our smoothing groups on. And I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to apply a box, a UVW map box type on it. That's just to get some coordinates on it and then collapse it. And now we're going to start texturing this guy, or at least getting the UV mapping correct. For that, I'm going to apply an unwrap UVW to that. And we do need to get this thing set up properly. So I'm going to go to Face and highlight that. Go under Edit and say Display Filtered Faces. And go down here under Options and hit Tile Bitmap so that I can turn all that other stuff off. Now, I'm going to scroll this guy down a little bit, and I'm going to minimize this because I need the space over here, and scoot my crate over here so we can have some room to work. Okay, now everything that I select, you'll see me going back here to the Select key back here when I select the faces that I want. Now we can do this a number of different ways. We could come up here and say normal mapping, box mapping. Oh, here, let's select everything. So we could select everything in our box. There we go. And do that. So box mapping. And you'll see that it'll give me all these little parts. It's not bad. Not a bad way to start. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the big pieces myself, because I really don't want them doubled up like this, and I don't want to have to pick them all apart. But if you're used to using mapping, normal mapping, or you like the way that that works, go ahead and do it that way. This is a pretty simple object, so I think what I'm going to do is just come in here and grab these pieces, say break, and then I'm just going to move each piece off to the side as I do it. And I'm just going to work my way around. And really I'm just thinking in terms of how do I want to texture this and what pieces do I want separate on my map. Now because I did this as box mapping before, everything is pretty much mapped all right. I just need to separate it and use break and just kind of move them off to the side for the time being. There we go. I got a different piece in there by accident. There we go. And we'll do break. Move this guy over. And we'll do this piece and we'll have the outside all done. This is actually the old way to do it, but I still find this the most useful way for anything that's a really simple object. But like I said, if you want to use the normal mapping for that, you can. Okay, so the big pieces there are done. Now I just need to do the big pieces in the center or the inside. No big deal with these guys. You don't have to hit break after a while because they're all going to be separate anyways. Now see, the inside pieces I'm going to move up here. The outside pieces were over on this side. And that's just so that I can keep them organized and I know what goes where, because they're going to look really similar. There we go. And this guy's going to go up here as well. There we go. And if you're getting confused on which pieces you've already done, if they're showing up in the center here, you haven't really mapped them or UV'd them yet, because they would go up here and show up. All right, and oops, there we go. And if you had any little strange polygons popping up out of order, you would know you selected something you didn't want to select. So these guys are going to go up here. Now we've done the main pieces inside. I'm going to do the boards, the top and the bottom of those, because I want to map those separate. Now in this case I can actually do them all at once because they are separated here right down the middle. You can see it there. So I'll go to break and I'm going to move the boards over here. And we'll go and flip this over, and we'll do the bottom the same way. And that'll cover most of my major faces. You guys will go over here. And now I've really just got all those chamfered seams to go in and to get. There's a couple ways you can do that. Some of these are already mapped pretty well. For instance, if I go in here and grab this top piece, which is right here, and I could probably get a hold of it easier over in this viewport. I'm going to minimize that for a second. And if I want to get a hold of that top chamfered piece, the easy way to do it is just grab all of these and then deselect everything underneath. And see, now I have just those top polygons, except that I need to turn off ignore back facing for this to work right. There we go. I always forget that button's there. And now I just have that top edge. That was ignore back facing. So if I go back into, see, just the top edge. If I go back over here, this was already mapped pretty well when I box mapped it using either normal mapping or I had box modeled it, mapped it using regular vertex mapping beforehand. So this guy's pretty well done, and I think I'm just going to set him down here in the corner. And again, we'll go back over here. We want to get a hold of all those faces down in the bottom of our object. So what I'm going to do is select all the way through, and then I just go back in and I deselect right through the faces I know I don't want. And see, it's a lot easier to get a hold of them. Just make sure ignore back facing is turned off. Otherwise you're not going to get all the pieces that you want. And now those can be modeled or mapped straight on, basically. So, for instance, I can map those with normal mapping. And what are we calling this? Is it left, right? No, it's front, back. Front back. I just talked myself out of it. It's left right. Why am I confusing myself? I'm totally confused now. So this is, let's just do box mapping. Okay. What I want are these big pieces here is what I'm trying to get. And I have talked myself out of it being back front. It's back front. Okay. I thought it was back front. Okay, and you'll see that these are all doubled up now, which isn't really what we want. But we can go down here and just select one piece and expand that out and just move it. And see what that's going to give us is each separate piece. Let's double check this and make sure that's right. Yeah. So now I have 4 pieces, and that was this button here. That just expands out the selection, so if I click on one polygon, it'll just expand out the selection for that one polygon. I'm going to put these down here. So we've done the top piece, we've done these bottom pieces. We need the sides of the boards at the very bottom. And so what I'm going to do, make sure I don't remap the ones I just did. I'm going to grab all the boards at the bottom. I'm going to grab right through there so that I don't get the top and the bottom. And then I don't need these here in the center. We know that because we just mapped them. And so now I should have just the outside pieces. Here, let's expand that. Just the outside pieces are there, which is what we want. And so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to deselect these pieces over here because I'm going to do those separate in a second. Oh, actually, you know what? We'll do those all together and we'll just use box mapping. So box mapping, you can see, already has done this for me, except it looks like I missed one originally. I think I've got the correct pieces there. And let me zoom in here. I may not have the chamfered sections. Yeah. I don't have the chamfered sections, and I want those as part of this. So I'm going back in here and selecting these chamfered sections. See these pieces right here, what I'm after. By the way, if these lines here are too thick for you, you can change them here if you want. Oops. Okay. Okay, and I want to make sure that I've got all those pieces there. I've got a few extra here I don't need, like that one. He was already mapped. This one was already mapped. This one got deselected. And I accidentally selected these little pieces in here, which were already mapped. Holding down Alt to deselect those. 2 more. Oh, 1 more. There we go. Okay, and that gives me all the way around that little chamfered bottom piece there. So what I'm going to do now is go under Mapping, Normal Mapping, and I'm going to use Box Mapping for this. And you'll see that that'll give me some pretty straight little pieces. It's pretty easy to figure out what's what here. These pieces right here, whoops, which need to be selected all the way through. These pieces right here are the ends of my boards on the bottom. These pieces right here are the chamfered edges that go all the way across, so we'll grab those. Well, we'll leave them for a second. And then these pieces here, if you're not sure what they are, you can always select them and go find them. And these pieces right here, I'm not sure what those are. They look like they might be the very bottom pieces over here, is what I'm guessing they are. Yeah, and I'll tell you how I know that. Is because I selected this and this piece here turned blue. That means it lines up to it. And so what I'm going to do is just move these over here. These two pieces go with these. There we go. Move them up. Move them up. And this piece here goes there. This piece here goes in the center. This will be a good time to seam these guys up. Even though they're really small, we want them to match. So each one of these guys can be rotated, I think, this direction. Let's double check. So let's grab an edge here. Let's zoom in here and see which one we got. I'm on edge mode now. Okay, so that's correct. So this one is going to line up right there. This one's going to line up right there. We've also missed one in here. Oh, that one already got included. And these guys here, they're all going to be rotated 90 degrees. And they're just going to go right up to their little corresponding piece. Of course, they don't have to be dead on. So I'm not going to weld the edges or anything. Okay, and if you really wanted to get those guys really close, obviously you could go in, you could grab the seams like these. You could grab, say, these guys here and go to Tools, Weld Selected, and it's just gluing those right in place. And a few more, just so they're done nice and neat. And that will get us plenty good enough for what we need there. Okay, let's zoom out and we'll neaten these guys up. So all of these pieces, go to Polygon. I'm just going to put these down here. We'll grab all of those guys and move them down here. And we'll grab all of these guys and move them down there. Okay, so now we've done these pieces. I think our board should be complete down below. The only thing we should have left to do is the handles here. These pieces in here, they're fairly easy. Whoops, don't need to close that. I can minimize that. And again, I'm going to go back over here, make sure select back face is turned off. I'm going to grab everything that I know is in the area of the handle and then just deselect out the areas that I don't need. Like so. And now I just have handles selected. So we'll go back over here, see what we have. That's with box modeling. Let me see if my normal mapping box modeling gets me anything better. I really don't like that a whole lot better. Let's see what other options I've got. Top isn't going to be bad. I could do top, bottom. I'm thinking. left, right. Left, right gives me this is going straight on to them. And I think what I'm going to do is the top. So I'm going to do top bottom. That's going to give me these straight down versions of them. So I've got a bottom and a top. And I think this is going to give me my best bet at getting these lined up. So I'm going to put these down here. The only problem is if we zoom in here, let me maximize this. If we zoom in, with top bottom, what's going to get stretched are going to be these sides right here. Now, it's not hard to fix that. If I go over here, all I need to do is go into my vertices, and I just need to grab these end vertices here, holding down Control. Just those end vertices, and I'm just going to stretch them up. That's going to give me more room in here for them. You can see they seam in over on this side. So just those end 4 vertices will move these down. That looks pretty good. Some of these guys I'm going to straighten out a little bit more. And that will give us 2 strips to deal with our handles. There we go. So that's not bad. Those are going to be my handles. They can go down here. And now we should have everything mapped. And the way we find out if we have everything mapped is, closed again. Go to Edit. And we can do this a number of ways. We can make it a shape and extrude it. I think what I will do is, I think I'm just going to use a cylinder to make that. I'm just going to squish this guy over here to the corner and leave it. So I'm going to go back over here, go back to my 4 views. In the top view, on the side view, I'm going to drag out a cylinder. That's going to be used to punch this hole in there. I don't want a lot of sides to this. The more sides I have, the more cleanup I'm going to have to do. But I do want it even on all sides so that I don't have a shape that's hard to deal with or different on both sides. And now I'm going to go to my vertices. I'm looking over here at the same time. And I'm going to start forming this to make that shape. That's pretty close. I'm going to need some edges in here. And I'm wondering if I want to move these over. I think what I'll do is just move these over. And kind of simplify this a little bit. I'm going to move these up. There we go. Move that guy up. Okay, and we start to get a shape that's similar to our handle we want, which is good. Okay, I'm going to come in here and just kind of straighten these out. I use scale for this. You could also use the Make Planer. See, I'm grabbing these. If you wanted to use Make Planer, you go by this. That's the Z, and that's just going to snap them in there. And then you can grab both of these because we want those at the same thing, and I can hit Z. And what that will do is make everything the same on each side so that it's perfectly lined up. There we go. So that's perfectly lined up now. I think that's probably pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to grab this and we'll just put this right in the, I could just see a mistake I just made. when I made it planar, I flattened it, which was not what I wanted to do. It's interesting. Okay, so make planar didn't work for that. I'm looking over here. I don't want to flatten it. And that's what happened. So I'll go back to my old way. And that's just to scale these down so that they're nice and flat. Wasn't looking in my other viewports when I was working, and that happens. Get all excited over showing you a new process and it doesn't work. Just go back to the old way that I do things. Okay, and this guy needs to scoot over just a little bit, I think. There we go. So that's pretty even. Now I'm going to scoot this over to the center. And I need to see up here, that's going to be in the center, and we're just going to push it right through the side so that we can Boolean this guy. Okay, and at this point, we're going to do a Boolean. I'm going to turn off Edit Poly on that. I'm going to select my crate. Remember, Boolean's under Create, Geometry, and then Compound Objects. Boolean. Pick operand B. We're going to click on this guy, and that blew that hole in there. Now you'll see this little edge running down there. That's going to be a problem. We're going to have to fix that up. And there's going to be some other errors built into this that we're going to have to fix. That's part of the Boolean. I'm not going to do it on this side because I'm going to use symmetry just to get that side correct. So I only got to fix one side. Okay, you can see the Boolean made this real nasty edge here. That's really not what we want. If we'll convert our box, by the way, back to editable poly. And you can see this is reading as one polygon, but there's too many edges here. So that's not going to work. The easiest way to clean up a Boolean, I think, now this is using Max 8. In Max 9, there are some tools that make this a little bit easier. So I'm going to go to vertices, and first of all make sure that the vertices here are correct. In other words, I'm looking for any extra vertices in here. Now because this was a low polygon object, our handle object, punching through what was a flat polygon, we're probably not going to have any stray vertices. And I don't see any. You can see there's a vertice everywhere it's supposed to be. Now it did make this interior piece, which isn't a bad thing. That's because I had some extra edges in my piece that punched through. If you don't want the interior piece, sometimes you do, but if you don't want it, then make your piece that punched through have no segments going in this direction, which I think was vertically in our case. And I think what I'm going to do is just target weld that back into place. And I could have avoided that just by making no segments in the regular object, but I usually forget to do that. And they're not hard to fix up. Some people are dead set against using Booleans on low poly meshes. There's a really good book by Paul Steed. I think it's called Modeling a Low Polygon Character in 3ds Studio Max. And he uses quite a bit of Booleans and then cleans them up. And I don't really have a problem with using the Booleans as long as you know how to clean them up. I don't think they're evil or bad. It's just if you don't clean them up, they can cause a lot of problems. And then it gets embedded in your object and you got to clean them up eventually sometime. Okay, now what we're going to do, we need to get rid of some pieces. I want to get rid of this. But my problem is I don't want to rebuild these areas here because my chamfer has already come in here and made this fairly safe, and I don't need to rebuild it. But you'll see with Edit Poly, okay, with Edit Poly I can get a hold of this big piece here. Kind of unusual it's letting me get a hold of that big piece right now. Alright. I'm going to delete that. Now I only want to delete one side, and then we'll do the other side. And then I'm going to need to rebuild this. And I'm going to go to create for this. Again, you could use bridge from, a edge if you wanted to. Double checking my polygons here. You can see up here, I think, let me zoom in here. Yeah, I've got a double edge here I want to get rid of first. I'm going to go to vertice. I'm going to grab these guys here, hit weld, and I'm going to bump the threshold up until they're glued together. You can see before and after are different now. Same thing on the other side. I don't want to deal with those these little guys that were made by the chamfering process, but you can see we really don't need them. And chamfer sometimes does that. There we go. I'm going to go down here at the bottom too, and I'm going to have some funky little polygons down here as well that I probably don't need right now. We're underneath our object. I'm going to use target weld for these. And I think what I'm going to do is actually scale these into each other. I'm going to grab these three, and I'm just going to scale them into each other for now. And then I'm going to use target weld and just weld these guys together. And lower this a little bit. There we go. I like to scale these into each other first because I think it just kind of keeps the model together a little bit better. You can see our chamfer's still there, our chamfer, but it's just cleaned up. There we go. That one will probably hold together pretty well there. This one here can come out a little bit. Okay. And let's clean up over here. Chamfering does this where it will kind of split edges apart a little bit. Not split, I shouldn't use that word. That's not what we want. It builds in geometry where these things come together. And you see we want that little triangle there. Down along this bottom rail. There we go. So I've got everything pretty well fit in here, and I've got some big empty spots here that I would like to try and fill in with something, because then I can make everything a little bit bigger. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to fill much in here. I'd like to move these guys is what I would like to do. Let's try this real quick. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to take each one of these and try and see if I can get at least one of them in here. That'll fit there. this guy will fit up here. It's kind of like a big game. There we go. He'll fit right there. And then this guy, I was hoping he'd fit right in there. If we scoot him around, no. I think our best bet is right there. So I've cleared out this area here. And these guys can go right up here. They'll fit. That clears this out. Take this guy and I'm going to move him right in here if I can make it fit. I want him right there. Okay, so those are lined up. And now what I can do is grab everything and scale it out just a little bit. So let's see, we'll get a little bit more resolution there. Let's get these guys over just a little bit. There we go. They need to be scaled down a tiny bit. Okay. Now, I got this room here. I don't really see any way I can really optimize it very well. I think we've pretty much got as much space packed in there as we can possibly get. A few of these could be optimized a little bit, so I'm going to just bulk them up a little bit just to get a little bit more resolution in there. Not a whole lot we can do. Whenever you have these angled lines like this, you don't want to stretch anything too much. In fact, I think I'll leave those guys. Better bet's up here. Grab these. Scale them out just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So that is pretty well optimized at this point. It's about as good as we're going to get. And now I'm going to close this down. I'm going to go over to my material editor real quick and my asset browser. And I'm going to go find a piece of wood texture from my texture CDs here. You do have some of these texture CDs that come with the class. Let's see, which one would be a good one? I want something with some angles on it, like this brick will work for the time being. And I'm just going to drag this over to my map slot. Just drag that over to under diffuse color. And then we'll just apply this guy. And what we're looking for is to make sure everything lines up straight. You can also use what's called a texture, or not a texture map, a checker map. There's a checker pattern here that comes with Max. You'll probably want to tile it, something like that. See, I could drag that over as well. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that all these checkers aren't, nothing stretched, that they're all nice and square. And you can see here they're going to look a little weird because we've got different chamfers there, but they should look nice and square. We can make them smaller. Probably a little smaller would help. Yeah, a little smaller than that. There you go. And now you can see that that's a pretty well textured box. So when our texture ends up going on it, which we've got simulated here by our brick pattern, and I can tile that brick pattern the same way so that it's a little bit smaller. Let's try 12 by, say, 12. There we go. And you can see that that's on there nice and flat, and that our wood texture should go on there pretty well. So that's our UVs are on there. Now we just have to make the texture. The first thing we've got to do is go back to our unwrap one more time here, and we want to render the UVW template. And what that's going to do, this little menu will come up. We're going to make ours 512 by 512. 1024 is probably a bit much for our little crate. And then we're just going to hit render the template. And what we're going to end up with is this guy. And that's what we're going to output by hitting this button here to someplace we can save. In my case, I'm going to save it here to my directory for the class. And we're going to call this box, well, no, we're calling it crate template. I'm going to save this just as a target, which is what I'm going to use for my texture. So we'll hit save. This is going to come up. I don't need 32-bit. If you want 32-bit, it'll save a mask of all these little lines here. So if that's what you want, you can do that. Yeah, I just want 24-bit. And now it's saved. We can close this down. And I'm going to minimize max. You could close max at that point. Make sure it's saved. And then back over to Photoshop. Now here's my box textures all ready to go. I'm going to open that texture I just made, which is called crate template. There we go. And I pretty much can strip pieces right out of the photograph that I already have. What I want to do first is I want to find a generic material to kind of lay down over this. I'm also going to invert the colors to start with. So I've got white. That's just a personal choice. I just like working on the white better. So you can see I've got some wood textures. These are all in my folder if there's any of these you'd like to use. I'm probably going to use this one because I think that's probably going to be closest to what I need. We'll minimize the rest of these guys and we'll use them as layers. Okay, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to plop it right over my template. And it needs to be scaled just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so you could see that if I wanted to, I could put this on multiply and I could see my template underneath it. Now, we may never see any of this particular coloring, and you can see it doesn't match the coloring of my crate exactly, so I'm going to adjust it using hue saturation, and I'm going to find the hue and kind of make it match a little better. My box has a little bit more red in it, right around there. Make it a little lighter. There we go. That's kind of close to these colors that we've got in here. If you don't get it dead on, you can always select the color that you want it to be. You can see like this color here. And I can make a new layer. I can fill that layer with that color and then go through my layer types here and see if there's something that'll match. See, that's getting closer. Now I can come down here and desaturate this a little bit just so that it's not working through. And you can see that's getting pretty close. So that's not too bad. That's pretty close to my original color. I'm going to close this now because I don't need it anymore. But that's pretty close. And I think what I'm going to do at this point is just merge this layer down and Just going to adjust the color a little bit more. Knock the saturation down. I don't like working on it when it's too saturated. Okay, so that's my generic texture. You can see it's going to match these boxes pretty well. Now at this point, I can go in and strip out a lot of these pieces. These pieces are bigger than my template here, so that's not bad. That means I can use them at least. And I'm just going to strip these out. There we go. We'll copy that guy. Paste him in here. He needs to be scaled down. Holding down Shift so that it locks into place. I like to line up one corner and then just line up the rest. And you can see that that works pretty well. We want to get it pretty close to dead on those lines. There we go. And if we go to Transform Distort, we can really get it right on those lines. There we go. That's pretty close. And I've got some others here. I think I've got the other side. Yeah, it's this one. You can see this one's going to need to be distorted, and that's fine. We can smash this stuff together. And I'm not going to do all the textures this way, just some of them, so I can kind of get a feel and match my texturing. You can see the lighting on this one's going to be different, and that's why I don't do it on all of them. Put it down here and just flip this guy. And there he goes. Just right down there. We're going to go to Distort on this one. And this one I'm not going to worry too much about since the lighting's different. I'm going to clone in a few pieces on this guy. There we go. There we go. That one's going to need a little bit of fixing up because you can see the light's a little bit different. And now these inside pieces here, I can use the same pieces. So let's go down here. All I'm going to do is copy and drag this guy over, select it, and we'll just rotate that guy counterclockwise, and he should fit right in here. Don't worry about it needing to be a little bit bigger. You can see it's going to have to get a little bit bigger. And this guy, oops, he's in this layer. Copy, drag him over, rotate him clockwise. He's going to go right there. Okay, so those are starting to fall into place. I'll come back and deal with them in a little bit. I can do the planks here because we have pretty good pictures of the planks. So I'll just copy those and paste them. I'm going to go ahead and, using the square bracket keys, I'm just going to paint these out. I'm using my mouse right now. There we go. That's good enough. Put this over here. Needs to be scaled a little bit. And again, I'm not too worried about whether I go over the lines or not right now. And I think for these planks, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clone this down, like so. And then I'm going to come back in and change these in a little bit. You can see that I don't want each plank to be the same, but I'm just going to change them up, and I'll add my own water stains and so forth to them. These here, again, more planks. I'm going to use a different piece this time. So, something like this guy. Paste those in. And there we go. We'll use our eraser. I'm holding down Shift. That's what's making the straight line. And we'll just line this guy up and scale him. Squish him in there. And then this guy I'm just going to clone as well and not worry about the extra pieces right now. I'm going to come over here to my layers, and I'm going to merge some of these down and just kind of get them into groups. So I have these pieces, and these pieces in separate groups. Parts I've got. Certainly could do that. I find it's a little hard to control. You can also add bend filters, twist filters to beat up the mesh a little bit more if you want to. The texture, of course, take care of some of this too. It's going to look a lot more beat up with our texture on it. Okay, and now what I want to do is just optimize this a little bit, and that's usually as easy as going into Target Weld, and we'll start to decide which polygons we need and which ones we don't. So some of these I can start to get rid of, and kind of center them if we are getting rid of them. Just kind of clean them up. Don't mess up your chamfers though, so don't over-optimize it. You can see that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just kind of deciding which polygons can stay. Anywhere you have these great big faces, like these, we can usually get rid of those without anybody knowing. I think this will work. And you can see you're really not going to notice those missing polygons there. Oops. And I'm centering these so that I have less skinny polygons stretching across there. We can do the same thing on the inside. Again, I'm lining this little metal strip right up with the sides. Because the wood I can make. The wood's not hard to make. That little metal strip would be hard to duplicate. And I'm not sure I have any reference material like that. So we're just going to use what's in the original photograph. So now we've started to get pieces on here. For these strips of wood, I'm just going to grab some existing material from my photograph. And we'll just maneuver that into shape. It's going to go right over here on top of these pieces of wood. Like so. And we can do the same thing with this. We'll just grab a good chunk of that, paste it over here. I could rely just on my generic material, but I don't think it's quite close enough. to rely on. There we go. There we go. And one more. Probably right down here looks good. Okay, so we've got material on most of our pieces here. Now it still is going to need some touch-up. I'm going to quickly go zoom in here, and I'm going to merge all of these down into groups again. Merge down, merge down. You can see those big giant groups there. I'm going to be working in this layer right here just to clone in some spots. And I'm just going to clone in this area right here for the time being. Now the texture is not going to be completely done by copying from the photographs. We're basically using this as a template. And we're covering with photograph material because we know that would work. The problem is my photograph is very grainy, as you can see here. And I don't want a grainy texture. So we're going to eventually come back into this and make it look a lot better. But we want something to see what this is going to look like on the box. There we go. Quick cloning up here. That's also why we used the same photograph, because it's not going to matter in the long run, since we're going to be cloning everything anyways. And we don't need these holes here because in our model, those are modeled detail, not textured detail. There we go. Like I said, we're not going to leave all this quite this messy once we're all done. Just filling it in so we can see what it's going to look like. Okay. So you can see most of the detail is covered up now. We're looking to cover up those purple lines. A little bit up here could be fixed. Because that will mean everything will have at least texture on it. Okay, and now we're going to save this both as a Photoshop file. So in textures, oops, let's go back up here. This is going to be cranked texture, PST, and we'll flatten all this, or we'll just save a copy. So we'll save it as a copy, Targa, and this one's going to be Text 24-bit. Okay, and now let's go see what it looks like in Max. We can just use our little brick material. Well, let's make a new material, I guess, since the brick was tiled. We'll go to bitmap, and then we've got to go find it. It's this one. There we go. Pop it on there. See what it looks like. So here's our crate as it is now. You'll see most of that stuff looks pretty good. See what it looks like rendered. It's not a bad texture as we have on there right now, and that was really thrown together. I'm sure there's some problems, but it really doesn't look too bad. You can see there's some purple there that's going to have to be fixed. It really doesn't look too bad. Problems there. Not too bad though. Okay, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to go back in and fix up this texture, and then I'll apply it, and we'll talk about what I did to fix it up.